outgunning competitors who have much bigger budgets. Being smart with what resources you have can often lead to victory, even when pitched against a much larger adversary. Now, time and again, challenger brands and companies pull the rug from under industry giants. It's great to hear those stories, but what if you did exactly that? What if you set about reevaluating your resources and how you use them? Specifically, we're talking about bringing your colleagues in to help. They are, as it would seem, very commonly an untapped resource with regard to how they could greatly assist in nurturing market-qualified leads. Creating and fostering relationships, building trust and staying top of mind is a huge undertaking which you address on a daily basis. But unless every employee is directly helping with that through their social media, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So this week on the show, we'll be looking into the possibilities and what can be had, along with what difference it can make to your company. Also, how to have everyone in your company help nurture clients and play a significant part in the sales process, all with minimal effort. Hello, good afternoon. My name's James Rostance, and this is the 414 Live. For you as a professional B2B marketer, whether you work in-house doing great stuff for your company, or if you work at a B2B agency, or indeed if you're a company executive with a hands-on role in your company's sales and marketing activities. And every week, I speak with some of the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing so that you can directly expand and enhance your professional knowledge. I miss that every week. Professional knowledge with every single episode. This week's going to be no exception because we're going to be delving into the world of employee advocacy, which is an awesome thing, which we touched upon ever so slightly previously. But this week, we're going to go diving right into it. Now, before I cross over live to the other side of the world, pretty much, Canada, where my guest is today, standing by, let's do the roll call of honor for new subscribers to the show and honorary new friends of the show. Having subscribed at the414.net, joining us this week, big shout out to Anurag Tiwari, Vicky Chown, Yaz Armin, Roger Jackson, Jason Hemingway, Matthew Carter, Melissa Romo, Daniel Doan, Dean Seddon, Michael Chidsey, Gabriella Brigando, and David Newman. Thank you, you guys. And if you haven't already, then the414.net is where you can sign up so you will not miss a future episode because you'll get a lovely email notification each week. And indeed, that's where you can go and check out all previous episodes. Today's episode number 76. And join me now as we cross over to Ontario in Canada, specifically the great city of Toronto. Welcome, Mr. Jonathan Baldock.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Great job with those names.
Thank you very much. Before we came on air, Jonathan was waiting for me to hit the live button, and I said, "Look, give me 1 second whilst I just run through those names one more time, because I think there's a wonderful thing if you can pronounce someone's name perfectly." And hopefully, it looks like we've got the Canadian seal of approval right there, that we nailed it this week.
I certainly think so.
Thank you. Yeah, hey, that works for me. Well, hey, look, so on the menu today, we're going to be delving into your specific area of speciality. So could you start by setting out the background, please, for where you see where the opportunity is for where employees can help with a company's overall sales and marketing process?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, James. So just to give everybody a bit of background, I used to work at LinkedIn and was there for the better part of 10 years. The final 4 and change was managing client relationships and their employee advocacy platforms and working with them. So have quite a bit of experience with it, still in that space now. And so really there's a few things. One is the value of engaging your employees and getting them to say great things about the company. That's not lost on anybody, but it's just sort of how do you do that? How do you scale it out? So we can talk a little bit about that today. But if we talk about the actual like LinkedIn stats, LinkedIn knows and typically will tell their clients that the voice of their employee members are twice as trusted as the corporate brands. So you definitely want employees saying those things, the corporate messaging, also sharing thought leadership and industry news, and that's going to drive engagements. And if you think about the assets that you have, typically they're divided into three groups. So you will have owned, which would be your corporate website, your LinkedIn company page, etc. You have paid, which would be if you want to run a specific and targeted campaign against an audience. LinkedIn's great for that, so are other platforms. And so you run that campaign, you're looking for an action. So, hey, this is our ad, please do this, click here, buy that. And then there's earned, and that's really where I spend my time. That's where I work with clients and coach them on getting their employees engaged, sharing out valuable content. And then further to that, I would say the thought process around employee advocacy is less about a specific moment in time or a particular product or service, but more about thinking about it as an evergreen channel. So you've got a long time that you can have a conversation. Evergreen meaning it's always on. And so you don't have to rush to a product or service. You can engage your audience. You can build that relationship. You become more familiar. And it's really about building visibility in the top of that marketing funnel, whether it's the sales funnel, the pure marketing funnel. But you have that opportunity to keep that conversation going. So I'd say those are some of the key components. The net of it is there are quite a few companies that are doing that and using this kind of service. The downside is that there's a vast majority that are not. And if we do a little bit of math and we look at, for example, owned versus earned, the typical company that you would see, like even a small one, say it has 50 employees, that average company that has 50 employees might have somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 followers. And that includes the 50 employees that work there. So if they do a company page update on LinkedIn, it's going to reach somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 people. Whereas if you have 50 employees, the average employee or the average person on the LinkedIn network has somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 800 connections. So if, let's say, we take that just as this example on the lower end with 500 connections, that one message, if the 50 employees share it out, it's going to reach 25,000 people. And so who are your employees connected to? Well, they're connected to your existing customers, so you have the opportunity to expand those relationships, and they're connected to your prospects. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to reach the people you want, have an ongoing conversation with them without having to constantly keep reinvesting in paid campaigns over and over again.
Nice. Okay, so I get the reasoning behind wanting to have employees and your colleagues sharing social content because it has a better and greater reach than the company page. But playing devil's advocate right here, does
Sure.
this mean that you're expecting everyone from, I don't know, the office receptionist to head of finance to be doubling up as social media executives along with their existing work? How does it actually work? What are you expecting them to do?
Right. So first of all, you don't have to have all employees on. So a larger company, if they've got a sales force of 10,000 people and they're an employee base perhaps of 50 or 70,000 employees, maybe not every single employee needs to be invited onto this kind of a platform. There is value in having all employees on, but typically that value extends over to more the talent acquisition side, which means that every employee's network is really valuable because if that employee is good quality, and they've got a valuable network, odds are they've got people in their networks that have a similar skill set and could be potential referrals into the company. But if you're purely looking at marketing and sales, perhaps you want to start with the people that have the connections to your customers. So that's note number one. And then I think the other thing is, you just kind of touched on it, not every employee wants to become a social media marketing manager or an expert on content. And they're not all copywriters. And so the easier you can make it for your employees so that they can raise their hand and say, this would be a great idea and I'd love to do it, then that's what you want to do. You want to make it as simple as possible and as easy as possible.
I get the feeling there's a beautiful answer to how you do that brewing in the background. But before we do that, I'd like to tease that. Could I ask, how do you like to make the case for why marketers, but also management, should give this serious consideration? Now, this may be in addition to what you've already covered.
Sure. So first off, I think there's value in having your employees visible. You want to elevate the profile of your employees. So if they're subject matter experts or you've got an executive group, there's value to have them out in the marketplace, sharing content, sharing thought leadership, because it makes your company more approachable. It strengthens the brand, if you will, and it humanizes the organization. And so those are all really sort of strong pulls as to why you would want your employees and executives sharing out thought leadership, sharing out content, sharing out company stories. So I think that's compelling in it of its own. And then I think then you can go into the measurement side, which is if you compare the engagements on a paid campaign. So let's say if you take various different networks like LinkedIn, for every time that you do a paid campaign, there's going to be a cost per click. And so that'll be unique to your company. It'll be unique to your industry because it varies. So some industries, the cost per click could be fairly low. In other industries, it could be exceptionally high. But generally, somewhere in that average on a LinkedIn, it could be somewhere around $3 cost per click. So if you have an employee or an executive share out a story, every time they get a like or a comment or a reshare, those are all those clicks, those engagements, those publicly facing ones that you want. And those have a value to them. And so we can associate that dollar value against those engagements and let you know if you ran a paid campaign and you offset that against what the employees are generating on their own, you can sort of see what that dollar value adds up to over time. And then that gives you that understanding of what's the value that the employees are bringing to the table as they do it. So there's a variety of reasons. Hopefully I answered your question reasonably well there.
You've answered that perfectly. I think it's really good to be able to justify these kind of things with bottom line financials. And sure. If I was doing some sort of exam thing right now, I'd definitely give that an A+. That was a sort of answer.
I feel like I read some. I just read some names well.
No, that was really good. So, jumping in on the chat, new friend to the show, Anurag. Good afternoon, Anurag. He's giving you a big hello, welcome, Jonathan. I don't get a look in, but he's excited about hearing from you. So thank you, Anurag. And equally, new subscriber and new friend of the show, Tim Burnett. Hey, Tim. He can't wait to actually get to the answer, which is, he says, how do you encourage sales and account managers to build a network with customers?
So for just to get them to connect, I think that's really a philosophy just on the platform, if that's what you mean. So there are actual networks. Whenever they're doing business with clients, I think it's worthwhile and valuable to connect with them on a platform like LinkedIn because you're regularly doing business. And so then when you do share a story or you share some thought leadership, you're adding value to that connections network. So the idea is that you want to lift all ships with some good news. And so I think it's just really talking with the sales team, the leadership team, and saying, hey, this is the part of our future philosophy of our organization is that there's value in connecting with those networks. But for a salesperson specifically, I would say also there's an opportunity to increase your ability to sell. So if I'm networking, which is all part of the story of social selling, if I'm networking with prospects, I'm networking with clients, then that strengthens my ability to be top of mind with them. And it strengthens my ability to be able to share and disseminate great quality information. And then therefore, if they're on a service that they might renew, it's increasing our likelihood of securing that renewal. It's building that trusted relationship. And so I would say, there's some great reasons to say, hey, you should be connecting with prospects. You should be connecting with existing clients.
I was going to ask, is there any more of a sort of a nudge you could give them? Because I can well appreciate that, particularly where sales teams are busy on a day-to-day basis, going out, getting deals and doing wonderful things that they do, right? I could well imagine that the answer that will come back is, yeah, that sounds nice, but I'm really busy doing this. And I appreciate you've already said that, look, there's a bottom line dollar benefit to doing this, but what else could you possibly do that would convince, and I'm really looking at sales right here, to convince them to get on board with this and to make it known that there's a benefit to them?
So salespeople that are engaged in social selling activities, which is this kind of activity, so sharing content, connecting with people, having conversations on LinkedIn, things of that nature, they're 70% more likely to hit their sales quota. And we know that when I worked for LinkedIn, we knew that those were the stats. We could see the salespeople that were utilizing social selling services, social selling techniques, and then we could see the salespeople that weren't. We were regularly consulting with our clients and getting understanding as to who's successful and who's not. And we can definitely tell you that that is the case. So salespeople are usually money motivated, hence why they're in sales. And so, that kind of messaging, just saying, look, all you need to do is adopt some technology. And, salespeople also, I'll be honest, they like to cut corners. They want to do the least amount of work to get the job done. And so adding things onto their list of things to do, meaning, hey, now you need to share 3 stories this week, or you need to do this. They are going to say, hey, look, I'm busy and I don't have time to do that. And the answer is that's true. And so what you will find, and what I experienced in managing these kinds of platforms, especially salespeople, but it really cascades across all kinds of roles, is that there's only a certain percentage that will actually, you may get a lot of people that raise their hand and say, this is great and I want to do it. But the follow through is really the tough part. How do you actually get people consistently working in these platforms, seeing the stories that they can share, selecting it and sharing it out? And so I would say the short answer is, people to a certain degree are busy and they have other things to do. And so early adopters are people that adopt technology easily. They're the ones that are going to be your super social shares. And then the rest of them, you're going to have to build a different strategy.
Nice. I love the 70% figure. So could you just, for the sake of absolute clarity and for really driving this in, the 70% figure was, one more time, please? It was so
that's salespeople that engage in social selling. They're 70% more likely to hit their sales quota.
Perfect. Okay, Tim, does that answer your question? If it does, give us a thumbs up on the LinkedIn. So I guess my next question in that case is, given that we've covered that they need to be sharing content, what specifically should they be sharing, and how can their lives be made easier? Because I know that would be a concern of mine, is that it's tough coming up with good social content to share. So how do you make that easy for them?
Most companies don't have a central location of everything you've ever wanted to share. In a lot of cases, and they use a lot of different tools. They're using a lot of different services, and those companies they weren't built in a day. So some information stored in one location, then they get new systems, and then new information stored in another location. Some of it's on the intranet, and employees will get confused. What can I share? What can't I share? If they're in a regulated industry, then it's, am I allowed to share this? Because if I do and I'm not allowed, I could be breaking some rules. So you want to make sure you make it as easy as possible for employees. So you had a question?
Well, no. I was just saying, I was going along with it. No, I didn't mean to do to distract.
Oh, no worries. No worries. So based on that, what you want to do is try and centralize where this repository of stories are. And that's where, tools like employee advocacy platforms are really key. So when I was at LinkedIn, we had one, it was called LinkedIn Elevate. It has since sunset, but it was fantastic and it worked really, really well. And basically we would pull in all the different stories. But you also, as an employee, you don't want to just be a voice box for the company. Meaning if all I'm doing is sharing stories about products and services, I'm going to get tired of that really fast. And so is my network. So we had a really good ratio when I was at LinkedIn, which was a 3-2-1. And that means for every 6 stories you share, 3 of them are thought leadership. 2 of them are industry, 1 of them is about the company. And so when you keep that ratio, then the first 5 pieces of content, the first 5 stories that you're sharing are really about providing value to the network, lifting everybody up. So whether that's 5 ways to improve this, or perhaps it's industry news about how things are shifting, whatever that is, that will resonate with your network. So then when you do get around to sharing that story about the company, and it doesn't have to necessarily be product or service, it could be, here are the great things we're doing in the community. We're doing this fun run. We're donating. Here's our campus. We're highlighting an employee. All of those things are still company related, and they all strengthen the brand, and they all strengthen the relationship of your brand with the audience that matters to you most, which happens to be all the people that are connected to your employees.
With you, okay. You were touching on then that's you mentioned the word central repository. Great word.
Sure.
I imagine that this is linking to the fact that we as marketers spend most of the time creating content. And I do remember actually a previous guest on the show had said that there's some crazy figure where basically most of the content doesn't get used or it has a single use published, and then that's it and it goes to waste. So have you got a way of, a solution to a central repository, and how does that work? And how, I'll leave it at that. That's a question. How does that
Sure.
work?
Yeah.
What's the answer?
Well, so I think it's a company. It's difficult for a company to do it on their own because it's not their business. Meaning, you're not going to build yourself a gas station because you need gas, right? So if you need to fill up on petrol, you're going to go to the local petrol station. So it's finding tools and services that can do this for you, and the value of being able to categorize the content, categorize those stories, so that when an employee has access to that central repository of information, they can see, hey, this is a thought leadership piece that relates to this industry. Because if I'm in sales, I want to share things that are relevant to my network. And to be honest, I only want to look at the stories that are relevant to me and are relevant to my network. Yet, I could be surrounded by 1,000 other salespeople at our company, and they're handling different kinds of clients, different verticals. And so, what you want to do is you want to build a relationship with content through a tool that's an employee advocacy tool that can categorize the content by either by function, by location, by industry, etc. So that way, when the employees log in, they see everything that's relevant to them. And if a different employee logs in, they see different content that's relevant to their networks. So now there's a greater incentive for the employee because they don't have to shuffle through thousands and thousands of pieces of content in order to find what's relevant. And that also increases the likelihood that those stories will get used. So instead of just producing content constantly and hoping that somebody's going to do something with it, now we're delivering it to the employees where it matters most, and then giving them an opportunity to amplify it.
Right. So just to be clear, the solution to this is having some kind of central repository where not only is the content readily available, but crucially, it can be, tagged and categorized so that whoever's looking for it, or whoever's looking for it, can find only that which is relevant to them, which I can also
their
imagine.
networks.
And
Absolutely.
the networks, yeah, which I can well imagine is also going to be key for them actually doing it. Because it's I imagine there's a lot of times where people say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, I'll do it. But then when it comes to it, if it's too much of a workup, they're not actually going to follow through. So this categorizing and tagging of content, I can see, yeah, that is central to success.
Totally.
Could I ask, well, here we go, next question. Are there any common pitfalls or points of resistance that, in your experience, marketers would be well advised to know, appreciate, and take on board?
Sure. Taking on a program like this, first of all, most marketers will think that this is a lot of heavy lifting. So one, they'll start to assume I need to hire staff that just do this. And with the early kinds of technologies, the early kinds of platforms, that might have actually been a requirement. Less so now. So these platforms are getting better, which is fantastic. So it's making it easier. I would say one pitfall is not getting the buy-in from executive leadership, making sure that they're on board. Because if you're not getting buy-in from the top, you could start a program like this, and 6 months later, if they don't understand the metrics in which you're reporting back on, then that could easily get canceled and you're not going to get it refunded. So making sure that it's clear as to what you want to measure, it's clear, what those outcomes are, whether it's as simple as managing top of the funnel metrics like likes, comments, shares, clicks, reach, and trying to understand how you're penetrating into the market. That could be one factor. It could be all the way down to what's the bottom line? Are we getting additional sales? How are we getting additional sales? Are we tying it into our CRM and calculating out, dollar value of extra sales earned? So understanding that, I think, is really key, because then when you have the executive buy-in, they know what you're reporting back on. They know what you're expecting to deliver. And I think being realistic about it is another thing. Having this expectation that you're going to quadruple your sales because your employees are sharing content, that may be overreaching. So calculating it against what you would be expecting from paid campaigns is a great way to look at it. It's not quite as targeted as a paid campaign, obviously, but there's a lot of overlap as to the audiences that you care about. And if you're running a paid campaign, unless that campaign is purely targeting an industry that you've never gone after before.
With you. Nicely done. If I may, Ruth Stevens, esteemed data expert. Good afternoon, Ruth. She asks, basically, can you recommend a content repository with these capabilities?
Well, that would be me getting into promoting what I do now.
Please do. Yeah.
All right. So the short answer is yes. I'm familiar with somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 of them. And that's because of my time at LinkedIn. When I was servicing our LinkedIn customers, I was working with the LinkedIn Elevate platform. But because that is since sunset, I obviously could have looked at any one of the competitors and looked to build a relationship. I invest my time with a platform called Social HP. And so it's socialhp.com. The reason why I do is because they've solved the biggest problem that I experienced when I was at LinkedIn, which was usage. And so when I was at LinkedIn, our biggest challenge was if you rolled it out to 1,000 people, so you had 1,000 people raise their hands, sign up, and activate, the overall average monthly usage was close to 20%. So those are people that are excited about technology. They'll go in, they'll do it. It's great. The other side, though, is that there's what do you do with that other 80%? They've got valuable networks. How do you convince them to log in? And the short answer is it's really tough to do it. And we had clients that were exceptional. Everything we suggested when I was at LinkedIn, hey, you should do this, you should do this. These are our best practices. They rolled out all of our best practices, and still they struggled to get well above that, what appears to be somewhat low percentage. 20% generate a lot of value. So there's, nothing wrong with having a platform where if you have 1,000 employees on it and 200 are sharing regularly, it will still justify the value of the platform. My time at Social HP, our average customer has 80% monthly active usage. So it's completely the opposite. It's 4 times the industry average. And that's where I would say I would recommend, taking a hard look at it, because in the end, it comes down to, can you actually get people to do it? And the short answer is, I know one way now, and it's where I spend my time.
I really appreciate that answer, actually. It's, I think, really important to be able to understand and appreciate what needs to go into making an informed decision, and also the right one. And I think you covered that really nicely there. So thank you. Ruth, I hope that answered the question quite nicely. Thank you for watching. Ruth is watching live from New York, she'll be.
Great.
Technically just down the road from you.
You're right. Yeah. Thanks, Ruth. I was in New York. an awful lot over the last 8 years. I averaged 3 trips there a month. It's a great city. Love it.
Nice. You know what would be cool then in that case? If we moved on to favorite case examples, what would you say are some of your favorite case examples of a employee advocacy program well implemented?
Sure. So I think there's a few things. I've got specific examples, I think, in my mind of how to amplify the message of an executive. Because this is a great kind of tool to do that. So what you have is you have various leaders in your organization. Some are subject matter experts, some are executives. It could be your CEO. And it's difficult if your CEO publishes something on LinkedIn, either directly or through their communications team, and it kind of falls quiet. There's a bunch of crickets, nobody's clicking on it, etc. And so this is a great way to amplify that message through the employees, where you could literally grab that message and say, hey, sales team, hey, marketing team, hey, talent acquisition team, we want to get this out to the masses. And so there's a limited number with LinkedIn. There were a limited number of what we had. They were called influencers. They'd capped it at 500. And I think that's, they're moving away from that and giving everybody the opportunity to be able to generate their own influencers at their own organization. And so you'll notice when you go on a LinkedIn, if you see how many connections you have, you'll also see the total number of followers. And that's, if that follower number is larger than your connections, then that's people that are still following you, but they're not connected with you. And you can actually take executives within your organization, those thought leaders, those subject matter experts, and you can highlight them, deliver their content, amplify it through your employees, and then generate thousands and thousands of additional followers for those leaders. So then that way, when they do an update, not only are your employees amplifying it out, but now those additional followers are having an opportunity to be able to see that messaging directly through that leader. So it creates that connection, humanizes the brand, humanizes the executive group, makes them more approachable, and gives them an opportunity to amplify their message. So I would say that's a great example. And I had one client that was in pharmaceutical who did an exceptional job of this. And they promoted various different executives. And instead of getting handfuls like, tens or, even, in the low hundreds of engagements, they would get upwards of 15,000 engagements on a single share.
Blimey. Okay.
Yeah, it was astronomical. It's a big company, but they had only a limited number of people on the platform, but that limited number really generated a lot of value.
I can well imagine that's where you've got this as maybe a case example. Well, yeah, where you've got this as a case example of the benefits and what can happen when you do this, because you can then help amplify executives' content and with that their reach. That's surely got to be a huge bonus for getting executive buy-in to actually implementing an employee advocacy program.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's easy if you tell the executive, hey, when you were sharing this way before, you got 30 likes and comments. Now you had 15,000. What do you think? They're going to say, please do more of that and do it as often as possible, right? So, and then they'll also say, obviously, like with X number of employees, we're getting this success. What if we have a much larger number of employees on? What kind of success can we derive? So that's just one example, but there's so many to be able to cite.
I like the idea of anything that we cover on the show has the ability to make a B2B marketer more of a superstar in the eyes of company executives, and I think this is one of them. I need to get some kind of sound effect that I can hit when that happens.
You know what? It's funny. Like everyone's individual motivations vary, right? Yeah. So some people, it's about the greater good. It's a very small percentage of people, which is hey, like as long as the world is better and I'm making a difference, but that's really a small percentage of people. A lot of times, though, there's a genuine value and a genuine need to be able to get some shine, and so running a program that if I implement this, and it's going to deliver a lot of positive feedback. It's the shining star in the organization. That's that's a really big opportunity. Promotions come out of these things. A lot of kudos and a lot of visibility come out of it. Opportunity to be able to expand your career and direction. So, there's sort of a bit of a saying, which is, no one gets fired for hiring Goldman Sachs. Meaning, if you make a great decision, and then if it goes well, you just look like a superstar. So you want to make that decision where it adds value to the company, but you want to be able to get some shine back on you. And so picking a tool that can do a great job for you and put limited effort into it is really an ideal situation.
Nice. Well, I think as everyone realizes that, I mean, in any organization, it's the B2B marketers who are the true superstars. But it's good every now and then it's good every now and then to just subtly remind people.
Right, exactly.
Arlette Lee, watching, official friend of the show, Arlette Lee. She's loving what you're sharing today, Jonathan. Thank you for that, Arlette.
Awesome.
Really appreciate that. This is super good. That's my summarization so far today. So could I ask you then, I guess as we're getting close to this now, what would you say are the main secrets for success in implementing employee advocacy?
Okay, so we covered a few already. Executive buy-in, clearly understanding what you
Huge.
want to measure.
Yeah.
So those things are important because if you sell it, you're going to have to prove it. And so we'll certainly work with organizations to be able to do that. But I think you want to know what you're after, and you want to make sure that that's realistic. And ideally, what you want to do is set the bar and then blow the doors off that. So that's an ideal scenario. I think being clear as to why you're going into it. So what's the messaging to the employees? Is the messaging, hey, please push out company content? That may fall a little short. So we need to be clear on what's the value, what's the benefit for the employee? Why would they want to do this? And those are clear, those are strong, and they're good. We just have to make sure we do it in a way that they want to receive that message. So whether that's elevating their professional profile, showing that they're an industry expert, really giving them the opportunity to shine. I think those are all very compelling. If they're salespeople, it's about increasing their sales and making some more money and hitting, for example, President's Club and going on a sales trip. So there's a lot of different motivating factors. I think being clear on those. Then it's making sure that you know which employees you want to invite in. Making sure that you're clear on the tool that's going to be best for you, best for your organization, because some tools are built, better for certain industries over others. Those, for example, that are in highly regulated industries, then you're going to need a listening tool. You're going to need a tool that captures all of those activities in case the government comes back and says, hey, we're going to audit all of the social activities. So understanding that, I think, is important. And then after that, it's really just making sure that you've got a regular cadence of follow-up and reporting and delivery. Otherwise, most organizations that I've talked to, they actually have content. They just don't have a way to really push it out. And so, it's identifying what's valuable to the company, who should be delivering it, and then going after the opportunity and getting it installed and going.
Perfect stuff. We're coming up just to the end of the show, but before we do, if you have a question you would like to put to Jonathan right now, please do put it in the comments section, and I will put it to him live on air and do a kind of a doctor's surgery with regard to employee advocacy. So yeah, questions in the question box now, if you'd like to squeeze one in just before the end of the show. So what advice then would you give to someone who is sold on the idea of getting this kind of a program implemented and running in their company? Where should they start?
Well, I think with any technology, it's about getting the information. And so the way I typically look at new tasks for me is it all seems very cloudy until it's sunny and blue sky. So once I have enough information and it clarifies the opportunity and it demystifies what's involved, I think that's really the beginning. That's the start. So having a conversation with someone like me or people in the industry that this is what they do, so that way, because each organization situation is going to be a little unique. So understanding, what's going to be involved, what's the process, et cetera, making sure that you kind of demystify what are those steps. Then you've got a clear, A to Z as to what's required. Maybe it's an A to C, if it's a lot shorter and it's a lot simpler, but really clearly understanding what steps do I need to take in order to be able to take this on? What is the requirement from my time or anybody else's time within the organization? And then once that I think is identified and they've got a good understanding of what they're tackling, I think then they're in a good position to be able to make a decision as to when's a good time to do this and what do I need to do internally in order to be able to get this sold and implemented.
Nice. Not forgetting, of course, the two standout facts, which I'm holding on to, although actually it wouldn't be fair for me to cover them. My final question is really, what would be the core takeaway or takeaways that you would like people to have from what you've shared here today?
So a couple. I think one is, this is an evergreen channel. And so you don't have to rush like a paid campaign where I have to put a message out saying, please click on this and please buy that. Or please click here, go to our website, download this white paper, sign up for this activity. You have the opportunity to be able to have a conversation. And when we look at a buyer's journey, it's not, I saw an ad and then I ran and did it. We're not driving down the street. We see a Mercedes billboard and we're like, well, got to get rid of this car. And I guess we're going to go get that one. So it may take 20 touch points, 30 touch points. Well, how do we do that? Unless we're constantly doing paid campaigns, which is really tough, our employees are connected to the people that matter most to the organization's success. So delivering that message through the employees consistently and over time is really what gets all those touch points happening. So then that way, when you've got a potential client that's ready to make a decision, you're in the top decision-making portion of that tree, the top three, potential places where they could spend their money. You're already, the client's already warmed up to the conversation. They know you, they know your employees, they know your products and services, they know your value proposition, they know what the brand represents, and they've got an emotional attachment to it. And I think that's really, really key. The last portion I would say is just make sure that if you take on a platform and you take on a challenge like this, is to pick something that you can drive some success from. So from my experience, the biggest struggle was usage. And so I would say focus on that, because that's where you're going to see the greatest ROI.
Nice. I really like there that you covered basically what we promised right at the top of the show in the teaser, is that in relation to two of the main tasks which we as B2B marketers are responsible for is for making sure that we're top of mind with regard to prospective customers. And the other one with the challenge of delivering higher quality marketing qualified leads. And that was part of your summarization right there. I really like that. Thank you. Now, I just wanted to recap, if I may. My brain was going all over the place. I sort of stopped mid-sentence before I answered the question. The two main facts, actually, which I think are just awesome for justifying and motivating people to do this. The first one was sales teams who engage in social selling are 70% more likely to hit their targets, wasn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was another one, and I didn't take the notes on that one. There was another key motivator for getting people on board to doing.
Employees are twice as trusted as the company?
I think, yes, I'll go with that one. Yes, of course, because the company page is so, but real people.
Oh, I'll say, well then. I'll say then it's the reach, which is, it's the great equalizer for any company that wants to compete with somebody that's bigger. So if I've got 50 employees and I can reach 40,000 when my employees share a story, what size of a company has 40,000 followers? Usually it's a company with 2,000 employees. So a company with 50 employees can compete with a company with 2,000 employees just by having their employees share out content. And so all of a sudden you've got the ability to compete at an equal level with the people that matter to you, with a company that's many, many, many times larger. And you can do it constantly. Whereas if they're not aware of this and aren't using this kind of technology, then they've got to do paid campaigns to step it up. So I would say this kind of technology, you've got the employees, you've got the content, it's just marrying them up. And if you do that, then you're able to compete with companies much, much larger, and you can drive a lot of success.
I couldn't have asked for a better answer, and I love the fact that you just then brought it right the way back round to the title of today's show, which was Outgunning Competitors with Much Bigger Budgets. And this is how you do it. I love delivering on a promise. Yeah. Or as Hannibal used to say in the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together.
They were solving lots of problems in barns they were always getting trapped in buildings that had all the tools to be able to build tanks. It was pretty funny.
That could be some kind of crazy metaphor for B2B marketing today, using the tools that you've got, what maybe in some situations, what few tools you've got, but turning it around at the end of the day to get the plan to proverbially come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We're all the A-Team locked in a barn with a blowtorch and a bunch of tools. All we need to do is just put them together.
Yes, and try and prevent B.A. Baracus from pummeling Murdoch.
You know what? If BA Baracus is on your team, then as long as he's doing stuff for the company, we're good.
I think that's a spokesman that would be very good to have for some companies.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Hey, you know what? I need to call up on screen and just give some quick shout outs. So I'll let Lee. Yes, she jumped in and said earlier that she loves your content today. Really, thank you for that, Jonathan. Thank you very much for watching. Regular friend of the show and regular watcher, Gamdan. He's loved the topic today. It's a great topic. Thank you very much, Gamdan says. And equally, Tim Burnett, he's loved it. He's stayed for the whole duration. Thank you, Tim. And top data expert live from New York City, Ruth Stevens. She's been loving your content as well. Well, thank you very much, guys. But equally, thank you very much to Tim. This has been a solid episode, and I think we've really made the case for another way that marketers can really, get an edge and make a difference with regards to sales and marketing.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, James. Appreciate having me on.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Baldock, live from Toronto in Canada. Thank you very much, sir. Pleasure.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. And if you've enjoyed watching, then please do sign up to, here we go, we're just on screen, the414.net so that you can get an email notification every week recounting what was on the episode. So basically, you never miss a week's episode. So the414.net to sign up by email. Or indeed, you can go on your podcasting app right now. Just search for the 414 and you can sign up to either the video version of the podcast if you've got an Apple iOS device, or failing that on regular podcasting apps where you can do the audio-only experience. Sounds quite nice, doesn't it, when you call it the audio experience? Right, there we go. 414.net. Make that your very next visit on the Inter-Cyberwet information highway. There we go, the 414 each week with some of the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing right here every week. Thank you very much for watching. My name's James Rostance, and I'll see you here same time next week.